Yeah.
It's the question asked every offseason. What will be the best games of the season? Today, we're going to give you your answers. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert as we are ranking the top 10 games of this 2022 college football season. Before we get started though, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, check out everything down in the description below, and become a part of our GE Nation. Become a part of what we're growing here at the Gridiron Expert so you don't miss out on any of the content we have for you for the rest of the year. But today, guys, we are ranking the top 10 games of this college football season. They're not going to be in any specific order. We're just going to give you what we believe will be the games that you have to watch, the must-see games from week 1 to the end of the season. Again, in no specific order, but we're going to go through really each week almost, breaking down what we believe will be the top games and how they will impact not just individual conference races, but maybe the entire college football playoff race. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Week 1, Georgia and Oregon in Atlanta. And we talked about this game yesterday with our top games of week 1. A lot of marquee matchups there. This will be one of the best of the week and one of the best of the year. The reigning national champions and the Georgia Bulldogs take on Dan Lanning and Bo Nix and Oregon. Dan Lanning being the defensive coordinator for the Bulldogs last year on their national title run. Bo Nix having experience playing against Georgia as he was the quarterback at Auburn. This is arguably going to be the toughest test for Georgia for their entire season. When you look at the Bulldogs' schedule the rest of the way, yes, they might have a tough game against Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe Florida if they kind of surprise some people, but Oregon is a guaranteed top 15 team to start the year, will be one of the most difficult tests they face. Should be a great, relatively low-scoring defensive battle between two great defensive-minded teams and defensive coaches, and a great way to kick off the college football season. Moving on to week 1 again, Notre Dame at Ohio State. We also talked about this game yesterday in our top week 1 games. This is actually our number 1 game in the first week of the season. This marks kind of the beginning of the Marcus Freeman era for Notre Dame. Yes, he coached in that Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State, but this is the first real regular season game for him where he's had a lot of time to prep. And this is an opportunity for Notre Dame to make their statement as a college football playoff contender. An opportunity for Marcus Freeman to do something that Brian Kelly never was able to do, and that is win the big-time games. Notre Dame going to be facing off against a tough Ohio State team, though, that is looking for revenge after missing out on the college football playoff, facing off against one of the best offenses in the country, led by C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and what should be an improved defense after the addition of Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator. But this should be a guaranteed top 10 matchup to kick off the 2022 season, and we should be in for a great one on September 3rd. In week 2, we've got two classic teams, two elite historic programs, Alabama at Texas, a rematch of the national championship from that 2009 season. Alabama won that national championship over Texas 37-21 at the Rose Bowl. It was their first national title under Nick Saban. And this has so many different connections, guys. Obviously, you have that rematch. You look at the two names here. The names alone make this an exciting game. The fact that it's in Austin makes this an exciting game. You have the Steve Sarkisian connection. Obviously, Sarkisian serving as offensive coordinator at Alabama under Nick Saban before taking this Texas gig. Texas going 5-7 last year, looking to bounce back in a big way, going to be facing off against what should be the number 1 team in the country that is absolutely loaded with the Heisman winner from last year in Bryce Young at quarterback and one of the best, if not the best defensive player in America in Will Anderson. So Texas, no one's going to give them a fighting chance. They're probably going to come into this game as a multiple touchdown underdog, but they have an opportunity to shock the nation or at least make this game something worth watching. We believe that it will be in week 2. In week 3, we've got the old Big 12 rivalry, Oklahoma at Nebraska. Now, these two teams did meet last year with Oklahoma defeating the Cornhuskers 23-16. But a lot has changed in the last year. A lot has changed. Lincoln Riley is out of Oklahoma, off to USC. Brent Venables is now the new head man at Oklahoma. Scott Frost, we know this is a must-win year for him. Many claim Nebraska as being the best 3-9 team in history last year, as many of their games were extremely close, most of them decided by one possession. But this will be the first true test for Oklahoma. First 2 games are kind of cupcake teams, so this will be the first true test for Brent Venables as the new head coach of the Sooners. You look at Scott Frost. He went out and added Mark Whipple as his offensive coordinator, stealing him away from Pittsburgh. Added Casey Thompson in at quarterback, a dual threat QB from Texas. And this Nebraska team has the pieces to be a lot better than the team that we have seen in years past. And Scott Frost needs this win. This is a primetime, big-time, marquee matchup game that if Nebraska can win, maybe their fortune can start to turn. But if Oklahoma can go out and win this game in a hostile Nebraska environment, they can show they're not going to miss a beat with the loss of Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. Going on to Week 6, we skip a couple weeks. Not to say there aren't any good games in Weeks 4 and 5, but Week 6 provides another big one. Texas A&M at Alabama. Big-time rematch game. Big-time revenge game for the Crimson Tide. Texas A&M stunned Alabama and the nation last year, 41-38 in College Station. The million-dollar question is, can they do it again? After a disappointing 8-4 season, many believe that A&M is going to bounce back in a big way and will not be viewed just as an SEC title contender, but a playoff contender as well. But to beat both of those, they have to beat Alabama. Jimbo Fisher's done a phenomenal job recruiting. Max Johnson comes in at quarterback, the transfer in from LSU. A&M absolutely has the talent and should have the talent to hang with Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But that's the key. It's in Tuscaloosa, and you know Nick Saban will have this Alabama team fired up, ready to get revenge after their lone regular season loss from last year. But regardless, this should be a great game, should be relatively close between what many could say are the top two teams in the SEC West. Moving on to Week 7, USC at Utah, a huge Pac-12 showdown. Similar to A&M and Alabama, with that team maybe determining who wins the West, this game between USC and Utah could determine who wins the Pac-12 South. This also could easily be a top 10 matchup. You have Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley at USC, taking on Kyle Whittingham and Cam Rising at Utah. Two great quarterback and coaching duos. You've got a Utah team that has been dang near unstoppable in Salt Lake City. The Utes have won 3 of the last 4 against USC at home, and they defeated the Trojans 42-26 in LA just last year. We're expecting a much different game this year, a much closer game, very competitive, but the Utes are legit, the Trojans are legit, and this will be probably one of, if not the biggest Pac-12 game of the year, the other, of course, being Oregon and Utah, which will happen later on in November. Moving on to Week 9, Michigan State at Michigan. Big-time rivalry game, and last year the game was unreal. Michigan State made a 16-point third-quarter comeback against the Wolverines, won that game 37-33 behind 5 rushing touchdowns from Kenneth Walker. Unbelievable game, unbelievable performance. But a lot has changed for Michigan State and Michigan. The Spartans no longer have Kenneth Walker. Michigan no longer has the majority of their defense. No Aiden Hutchinson, no David Ajabo. They lose a lot of talent and a lot of key coaching pieces from a team that just won the Big Ten and made the college football playoff. The game is now in Ann Arbor, though. Michigan nearly winning the game at East Lansing last year. The game in Ann Arbor. Michigan, like Alabama and A&M, has revenge on their mind. This game will be huge in determining who can win the Big Ten East. How Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State all fare against each other, and maybe even Penn State, group them in there, that will determine who wins that Big Ten East division, arguably the second best division in college football, only behind the SEC West. Week 10, Clemson at Notre Dame. Another game that could drastically affect the college football playoff race and the college football playoff picture. That's, of course, if Clemson and Notre Dame both live up to the hype. In 2020, Notre Dame and Clemson met in a classic in South Bend, the Fighting Irish defeating the Tigers 47-40 in, what was that, triple overtime? An unbelievable game in South Bend. Clemson, though, many people aren't buying their hype again. They went 10-3 last year and immediately claimed that the dynasty was over. Not the case. But Dabo Swinney does have a major rebuilding job to do in the sense that he loses his 2 top coordinators in Tony Elliott to Virginia and Brent Venables to Oklahoma. He's also dealing with relatively inconsistent quarterback play. He seems adamant that DJ Uiagalelei will be his starter, but I don't believe many fans want that to be the case. This is a team, though, for Clemson that is loaded on defense. The same can be said for Notre Dame, though. So ultimately, I see this being a low-scoring game and really coming down to quarterback and offensive play. Which team can show up the most? Keep in mind, Notre Dame does have home field advantage, though. 2 games left on our list. Wake Forest at NC State in Week 10. So another big Week 10 matchup that's not going to get nearly enough attention as that Clemson-Notre Dame game will. But Wake Forest, NC State, a game that could determine who wins the ACC Atlantic. Absolutely it could. We've said this for weeks and weeks and weeks. How Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson all fare against one another in conference play will determine who wins that division. And last year, it was huge. Wake Forest beat NC State 45-42 last year, and that victory was huge in Wake Forest getting to that ACC championship game. The Demon Deacons have won 4 of the last 5 against the Wolfpack, and this will be a fantastic quarterback matchup between Sam Hartman of Wake Forest and Devin Leary of NC State. Both teams are absolutely loaded, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Both will have played Clemson at this point, which means that, again, this could determine who wins the division, or at least puts them in the driver's seat of the division with a few weeks left in the season. And finally, the last game on our list, again, not ranked in any order, Week 13, the season finale, Michigan at Ohio State. The game. You couldn't expect anything less, right? Another big-time revenge game. Michigan defeating Ohio State finally under Jim Harbaugh, 42-27 in 2021. That was the one that got Michigan to the Big Ten championship game, which ultimately got them to the college football playoff. But Michigan now, for the first time under Jim Harbaugh, has a target on their back. Ohio State is angry. They have revenge on their mind, and they get to host the Wolverines in Columbus. Again, like we mentioned, depending on how Michigan and Ohio State fare against, obviously, each other, but Michigan State, Penn State, guys like that, this game could determine who wins the Big Ten East and could have major college football playoff implications. You would want nothing less and expect nothing less when it comes to the game between the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. So does Michigan have what it takes to defeat Ohio State for the second straight year and potentially ruin their playoff hopes? Or will Ohio State bounce back, defeat the Wolverines, and maybe in doing so get back to the Big Ten championship? So guys, there you have it, the top 10 games of 2022. There's going to be plenty of them. These are what we believe will be the top 10 just from the how big these games are going to be, the implications of all these games, but also how exciting they're going to be. But there are going to be plenty of others that we didn't even name on this list that are going to take the country by storm and be must-see TV. We have no idea what to expect, but I can tell you that these 10 are ones that you're definitely not going to want to miss. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, become a part of what we are building here at the Gridiron Expert, become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.